Hello, 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 amigas, and welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. Okay, this is an exciting episode. I mean, I love all my episodes, but I love to have someone who's a fellow Trojan. So let's just keep it cool here. Keep it classy as what was that guy from oh my God, he's also a Trojan.
Oh, Will Ferrell?
Will Ferrell.
Didn't he just do like a commencement speech? I don't know if it was this one, but the last one or the
The
one.
last one, I think.
Yeah,
Yes,
keep it
yes.
classy.
Keep it classy. It was a news
San Diego?
class.
Keep it
Yes.
San Diego. I should know that because my husband has seen that movie I don't know how many times.
So we're gonna keep it classy here,
Keep
fellow
it
Trojans.
classy,
Yes.
Whittier.
Here we
Okay.
go from Whittier. So who am I talking about? I'm talking about Jackie Hernandez. So Jackie is an extraordinary human being who
Thank you.
went from public policy to the juice bar. And she's going to tell you all about it. But before we even begin, I
Yes.
always love to talk about someone's background because obviously that leads perfectly into the topic of our conversation. So, Jackie, welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Thank you, amiga. I'm so excited and honored to be here. I'm really thankful that I saw Jessica a week ago, a week and a half ago, and she told me about your podcast, and then we met last week, and full
Yes,
circle today. Thank you so
magic
much.
magic moment because we're only like 1 degree of separation,
For
which
sure.
that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, on different sides of many people. Yeah, that's a
It
whole
is
other topic.
a whole different topic. But amigas, here's the thing. I really, really identified with her story and I knew that she was perfect for here at Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. So, Jackie, why don't you share a little bit about your background because that perfectly leads into what you're doing today. So, if you could let our amigas know, where are you from?
Yes. That's a loaded question. I think we talked about that. So, originally, my first place of going from the hospital, I went to Temple City because that's where my parents lived when they were married. And then they got separated when I was a little girl. And so, because of that, I went to live with my grandparents who were in Boyle Heights. And my parents became the weekend parents, and my mom was in the Alhambra, El Sereno area. My dad stayed at our home base in Temple City and Boyle Heights. So that's kind of been my journey for where I'm from. Yeah.
Well, and so both of your parents are Latinos, correct?
Yes, both of my
Yes.
parents are Latinos. My mom was born in Mexicali, and her parents are from Jalisco, a little town outside of Guadalajara, maybe 4 hours from there, San Martin de Bolaños. And my grandpa is from, oh my God, I forget the name of the town too, but close to San Martin de Bolaños. And my grandparents from my dad's side are from Villa Guerrero, which is also close to Temastian, and that's where they have El Señor de los Rayos. So if you're Catholic, you know.
Yeah.
You know, right? It's a big deal in Guadalajara, and I would say most of my dad's family has gone to see El Señor de los Rayos, and I really regret not having taken that opportunity when I was a senior in high school. I said, "What do I want to go for?" And now I'm like, "Oh God, I should have gone.
Oh,
I
well,
should have."
never too late.
Never too
Never too
late.
late.
It's never too late. But yeah, so all my grandparents were born in Jalisco, and my dad was actually born in DF, Mexico
Oh,
City, because my grandfather, his father, owned a couple of dry cleaners in that area. And so he was born over there, but raised as a young man in Villa Guerrero, Jalisco.
oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Well, you know what? It's so beautiful that at some point they decided to come here to the United States.
Yes, yes. I want to say my mom's dad, he was coming to the States in the 1950s because he was part of the Bracero program. I don't think we talked about it last time, but he was a migrant farm worker and had permission to, at this point, he was living in Mexicali, which is why my mom was born in Mexicali. And he was allowed to cross the border into California, particularly the Imperial Valley and also Delano and also San Jose. And he picked fruits and vegetables and would be away from my grandmother, his wife, and his 5 children. They were all very small. They were ages 6, 5, 4, 3, and 1 maybe. So
Oh
they
my
were
God.
all, but my grandfather needed to make money. He needed to make money. And my grandmother came from a well-to-do family, but fell in love with my grandfather. And her family said, you're married now, and it is what it is. And so my grandparents struggled financially, and so my grandpa had to do what he had to do to make money for his family. So he would come home maybe for about a week at a time in a month,
Yeah.
go back and live in, I don't want to call it tenement housing, but essentially it was these houses that were on the land of the farm workers, right, where they
Yeah.
would go and pick, and it would be even 10, 15 men living in a house.
Yeah.
And so these men became very self-sufficient, Jackie.
Yeah.
So my grandpa, when we were kids, and he was already retired because he retired very young at 50, the year my mom got pregnant with me, which was 1981, he knew how to cook and he knew how to clean and he knew how to sew. And it's almost like him having to cross the border without his wife, having to do everything for him, forced him to become a very independent man, not only on the work front, but also on the home front. So when I say he was an excellent grandfather, he was the best grandfather. Could make the best eggs. Ken, he's 92 now, still living in Boyle Heights.
God bless him. Oh
God
my goodness.
bless him. And
Yeah.
alone. I mean, we have somebody there with him, but he's still
Wow.
independent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so amazing because
Yeah.
there are the gender roles,
Yeah.
and I mean, let's face it, in Mexico there's been so much machismo,
So
but
much.
he's breaking that mold.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up because he definitely had the machismo with his wife and
Mm,
with my mom, who's the eldest of 5, and with the daughters. But when it came to the granddaughters, he finally moved to Boyle Heights. I want to say in the mid 60s, but the house they have now, they bought in 1967. It's the same house.
same
Same
house.
house, and now it's like gentrification central, right? But my cousins and I, so the grandchildren, we grew up with our mothers working in the downtown LA area. And it was about 4 or 5 grandkids that my grandpa, so he wasn't really retired. He was like stay at home grandpa and would drop us off at school because my cousins would get dropped off like at 7 a.m. And
Yeah.
school started like at 8:10. And so strategically, the moms put us in a Catholic school in Boyle Heights so
Mhm.
that grandpa didn't have to drive that far because he didn't like to drive. He really
Yeah.
didn't like to drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that I think about it, his second career, third career, became let me be a stay-at-home grandpa and let me rear these kids. And so we really grew up as grandchildren with a strong mentality because of him.
Yeah.
We're all masters, we're all doctors, lawyers, nurses. We're all educated professionals now because my grandfather brainwashed us to believe. Yeah, I mean, if you think it would be like, you're going to be the top in your class, and it was 30, 35 students. And when
Oh,
I tell you, Jackie, that St. Isabel, we dominated in the late 80s and mid 90s, the whole school knew that when it was time for awards at the end of the year, oh, there goes Jackie Sanchez. She's going to get the principal's award. Oh, there goes Mark Ortega. He's going to get the award. Oh, there goes Jason Ortega, and the Avilas too are going to get Peter Avila. He's going to get the award. We dominated that school.
you know
And
what? It's a testament to the fact that the words that we pour over to our children
yes,
can be so lasting
so much.
that can change the trajectory of that child's life.
And I'm getting the chills right now because I don't think I realized that my grandfather knew what he was doing, but I think he thought, okay, I have all these kids in front of me. I'm gonna mold. We're in a gang infested area, which still to the day I don't know why he didn't move in the 80s and 90s because his
Oh,
kids had offered to buy him a home in Montebello, in Whittier, and outside of Boyle Heights because that was the height of the gang era was
yeah.
the mid 90s and early 2000s, and it was a whole thing, right?
The whole thing. Yes.
The whole thing. So we were not allowed to speak to certain neighbors,
Yeah.
and we were only allowed to go over to kids' houses that were in the same Catholic school that we were at,
Yeah.
which is where your sister-in-law, she went to the same elementary school, and where she became friends with my cousins and with Abraham. And so I'm really thankful that he did that.
Yes. Imagine if in a world where all we did is provide praises and value over to our children.
And so I was thinking about this yesterday, and I thought, was it like the self-fulfilling prophecy for him
Yeah.
to pass that on to his grandchildren? And
Mm.
when I tell you that he really was a political activist because he knew Dolores Huerta and he marched with Cesar Chavez. And now, as an adult, I get emotional because I
Yeah.
think, wow, my grandfather wrote history for us. And I'm sorry,
No.
he really opened doors for so many people. And I didn't know that as a kid, Jackie. I didn't
Yeah.
know the greatness that he empowered himself with.
Hmm.
And the greatness that he passed on to us, the grandkids, and also his kids, but more the grandkids.
Yeah.
And I want to say that we even marched against Pete Wilson, Prop 87.
Oh,
To get
ooh.
political, do you remember that?
Yeah, 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 of
Remember,
course.
so Prop 187?
Yes.
187, right?
187, yes.
Took Mark and I to go, vamos, so we went after school and we were there with thousands of people. I remember we were holding boards. I don't even know if Mark remembers, but we went because it was the uvas no, and it
Yeah.
was all the whole
Yeah.
mess, how immigrants and migrants were being persecuted at the times, Latinos in the late 80s and early 90s. And my grandfather just really wanted us to understand the value of what his generation did here in California.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful. Now as an
Yes.
adult, I'm like, oh my God, this man's a legend. We should write a book about my grandfather.
As you should, as you should. So, Amiga, okay, this is so powerful
So
because
powerful.
I
Yeah.
think that this has led to the trajectory where you're at today.
Yes.
And I know you went through school
Yeah.
and you advanced. Like you actually were a senior when
Yes.
you should have been a sophomore or something like that.
Yes, well, I skipped the sixth grade. And again, that was that whole, it was one of two things, Jackie. It was either that his words had such a profound impact on the grandchildren, myself, right,
Yeah.
included, or the school was too easy. But I don't think the school was too easy looking in retrospect. I think it was really my grandfather saying, like, that repetition, you're so smart, you're capable. En español, es que tú puedes todo, el jale. He would say el jale in the
Yeah.
morning
Yeah.
because that's what the farm owners would
Yeah.
tell the farm workers, el jale, like, don't stop, you guys got to
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
And so even though at that point in time when my grandpa was hearing it, it was, I don't want to call it slavery, but yes, it kind of was like slavery. It taught him the value of, if you keep going, you'll eventually build a life that you want to build for yourself. And so I think he was doing that with us. And he said, all of you have to become professionals so that you
Mhm.
don't work like dogs. He would tell
Mm.
us, we're little,
Yes.
7, 6, 5, 4. Tienen que ser profesionales. No hay opción. There was no
Yes.
option.
Yes.
Yeah, that was that.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is so beautiful.
Mhm.
So, okay, so you picked a profession
Yes,
like
picked a profession.
that was in
Yeah.
public policy. So
Yes.
explain to us, like, how did that
Okay. So
weigh into your life?
that's a whole other. So one of the reasons my parents got separated was because my dad had a really bad car accident in 1983, which left him paraplegic.
Mm.
And as a result of that, he was having to rehabilitate for years and years at Rancho Los Amigos in Downey. And so that led me to grow up on a hospital campus, so to speak, because
Yeah.
of his situation. And so by the time he left the hospital, him and my mom took a mutual decision to separate. And I think it was probably the right move at the time. Now that I'm an adult, when you're a kid, I think you want your parents together. But now that I can look at everything, hindsight is 2020. And so I knew a lot about diseases and comorbidities and health. And then my grandmother who raised me, the one that I moved with, that was my mom's mom, she had end stage renal disease. And at the age of 9, I was pulled out of, gosh, what was it, third grade, to be a translator for her. Because back then there weren't any translators, there weren't any rules, there weren't any sort of regulations for what the hospital should be doing for people that did not speak English, right?
Yeah.
Because we're a melting pot in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
There are what, over 100 and plus languages spoken? So I served as my grandmother's translator. And so since I was such a good student, I don't think the school minded that they would sometimes pick me up an hour before, like once every couple weeks, so that I could go translate for grandma. And grandma's hospital was Kaiser Sunset in Hollywood. And so I became very well versed with everything to do with the hospital side, the pharmaceutical side, on the administration side. So by the time I graduated high school, I didn't do as well as I should have done in high school. I was honor roll, but I really, looking back, should have been valedictorian because
Yeah.
that was the capacity I had. But I had fun. I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
fun, and so I ended up.
You blacked out a little bit, but
Yeah, I clocked
that's
out a little bit. I had some fun. I made some good friends who are still friends to the day. But looking in retrospect, I probably could have gone to Stanford or something like that. But
never too late.
never too late. But regardless, so I chose to go to UC Riverside. I got a full ride, which was beautiful, and I'd gotten into a couple of other campuses, but it wasn't the full ride. And UCR in 1999, when they were offering me a scholarship package, they said, listen, we know that you can go to Irvine. We know you can go to Santa Barbara. They were considered better schools or higher tiered at the time.
Yeah.
But they told me, we will give you X amount of dollars and then some, and you'll have discretionary income. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to go to Riverside.
Yeah.
Not knowing, I thought, I'm going to be a pre-med, I'm going to be a pediatrician. And then comes time for, I don't know what class it was. And I told my husband this last week, I'm not going to dissect a cat. So there went that biomed
Right.
idea, but I knew I wanted to be on the health side of things, on the business side of things. And so I decided on a business major. So I got a bachelor's of science in business. It was heavily focused at the time: math, science, statistics, finance, matrix algebra. I had a tutor for matrix algebra because, Jackie, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Matrix algebra, like the Matrix the movie. And so you had
Take the red pill or the blue
you,
pill?
it was like you had to get. Okay, so it was a table of numbers, let's say 16 by 16, and it had all these random numbers, and the goal of the class was that you had to get one diagonal line to equal to 1, and everything above that equal to 0, and everything below that equal to 0. And to do one problem took maybe 2 hours. So I remember our final was 2 problems, and it was 3.5 hours.
Whew, Lord.
But I aced it. I remember
Yeah.
I aced it. So I knew, okay, I'm good at math. I'm good at business. I could do this. I could do this. So I graduated with honors from there, and then did internships here and there. United Health Group. Oh gosh, Liberty Mutual. Which is workers' comp. Wasn't in my field, but it seemed like an attractive thing to do at that time. Then the interesting part is Dr. Lavana Lewis still had, is the director for the program that I studied at USC. She still hadn't sent me my acceptance letter. And so I called her, I remember it was at the gym, and I said, Dr. Lewis, am I in? Am I not in? What? And then she says, hold on a second. And I think she goes and grabs a file, and then she comes back and she says, I just want to know why you didn't test so well on the GRE. And I was honest with her. I said, I was an hour late. I went to a birthday party the day before. It was a friend from elementary school. I couldn't miss it. And she went, okay, let me get back to you. So she hangs up, and I said, oh shoot, I shouldn't have told her. Why did I tell her that I went to a party the day before, and I showed up an hour late to the GRE? And so, oh God, I can't sleep the rest of the week. I thought for sure I'm not getting in. I'm gonna have to go to a backup school. Sure enough, Grandpa calls me, I think it was a Thursday, and he says, Jacqueline, te llegó un paquete pero grandote. There I go. I'm like, and of course, it was welcome to the University of Southern California, blah, 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 class of 2008, all that fun stuff. And I remember I called her and I said, Dr. Lewis, I promise you I will be in the top 5% of the class. And sure enough, because she told me, listen, your grades are fantastic. Your extracurricular was great. I just want to know what happened. So I was 60 minutes late, and I can't even believe the proctor let me in.
Oh, I know.
I think I was so desperate. I was like, no, you got let me in. I already paid for it. I can't take this. I can't wait 3 months from now or whatever it was. And so she told me later on, about a year or two later, she says, what I appreciated was your honesty. We all have bloopers. She would call it we had a blooper. We had a mishap. You were so honest, and you were so loyal to your friend's party. And I even told her, Dr. Lewis, I didn't even drink that night. I was just so tired from getting home late. And so that was that. So it was a Master's of Health Admin degree. And for a lot of people that don't know what that is, it's essentially an MBA. It's a Master's in Business, hyper focused in both healthcare business classes, the finance, the stats, the quantitative analysis, the accounting, and it's also hyper focused in like a public health degree.
Right.
And I want to say it was a public health degree that opened my eyes to the inequity of the delivery of healthcare, not only in the United States, but in Los Angeles. And some of the case studies that I was reading at the time were so disturbing, Jackie, that I was already married by this point, a year into the program. I got engaged, I think, 2 weeks after I got accepted or something. I forget it. My mind is fuzzy from that year. But so I was busy planning my wedding that first year, but then I went full throttle that second year. So it was nice because I had the 2008 cohort and the 2009 cohort. But I just remember my husband testing me on some of these case studies, and I just couldn't believe that Latinos and the African American community, we were 2 to 3 times more likely to get CVD, cardiovascular disease. We were 2 to 3 times more likely to have diabetes, 2 to 3 times more likely to die at an early age, 2 to 3 times more it was all these horrific stats. And the more I thought about it, the more I analyzed the food desert, so to speak, that Boyle Heights had, or that some of the cities in East LA County had. And what I mean by food desert is that, sure, we had Burger King, and sure, we had McDonald's, but did we have a juice bar? Did we have access to something like a buffet at the Whole Foods? You know, that nice buffet with the salad and the steamed chicken, and maybe you can get yourself a sushi roll. There was none of that. None of that. And I met people, students from other areas, from very affluent areas, and you become friends with these people, and they invite you to go to these affluent areas and these affluent neighborhoods. And the more I studied about the lower end of the socioeconomic cities within LA County, because we're over 100 cities in LA County, and then when I was kindly being invited to some of the more affluent cities, because I did get a master's degree with kids that were from Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach, and there was like 5 juice bars in a quarter mile. And it just kind of rung true for me that the obesity problem in, let's say, East LA versus Manhattan Beach, well, there was a reason for it.
Yeah.
It's the lay of the land. Where are you going to get access to this unless somebody's doing that at home? Or, I mean, you have to go to a liquor store to get apples. There was no Ralph's. There was no, you're lucky to have a Vallarta. I remember when Vallarta came to Boyle Heights, it was like, oh my God, what a great supermarket. And so, and then I also had the other end of it, because I was in Temple City with my dad, and we were in Pasadena, and we were going to like pho in Arcadia, and we would go to Whole Foods. So I'm very lucky that I got to see both ends of how people live in LA County.
Right.
And it became my mission, so to speak, to help kids, particularly with obesity prevention. And so I lobbied and advocated for the American Heart Association for a good 5-6 years. I started as an intern. I completed my residency there. And I visited so many schools and talked to so many young high schoolers in those 5 years that I was there, because I was in charge of a youth in action program. And a lot of the times they would tell me, I want to go to Stanford because it's just a nicer area. That's why I'm getting a 4.0. And another kid would tell me the same thing. I'm going to go to Berkeley and then I'm going to get out of here. And these were kids that were coming from Watts, South LA, not so much Boyle Heights, but maybe Los Angeles proper, Pico Union area.
Yeah.
And I got to meet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of high schoolers from 2008 to 2013 who shaped my life forever. And I'm hoping that I shaped their life. And I would tell them, you can, the same thing my grandfather, so it goes back to that. You can do anything you want to do, anything you want to do in life. You just really have to put your mind to it. You have to believe it. You have to feel it in your bones. And they would say, okay, Mrs. Hernandez. And some of them I know ended up going to Columbia Law, and they went to Yale. And these are kids with rougher circumstances than I found myself in, because we were very sheltered. We were very sheltered even though we were in that area. We were very privileged kids that lived in that area. It was almost by choice my grandpa lived there, not because of circumstance.
Right.
Yeah.
Whew, so much to unpack.
No.
I want to get into working in public policy as a lobbyist. And I know you told me your circumstance as being the only person to advocate for what was the American Heart Association,
Yes.
while you had these big, huge lobby companies. If you could share one little story, because I think that was pivotal in you leaving this entire career.
Correct. So around 2011 is when I started getting flat tires every 2 weeks. And we didn't know why. We had no idea why. And part of my role at the American Heart Association was to go and lobby. And they didn't like the word lobby because it was a nonprofit. They liked the word advocacy and government relations, and let's make it sound pretty. But really, truly, at the heart of it all, I was a lobbyist for the good guys, right?
Yeah.
For the good guys, not for the, they would call it, I remember behind closed doors, we would call it the dark side. It was PepsiCo. And don't get me wrong, I love a good Pepsi every once in a while, and a good Coke Zero. I love it. But in this circumstance, we were really trying to push obesity prevention policies in these neighborhoods where kids had access to soda 3 meals a day, in the school vending machines, in every liquor store, and they were having so much sugar. So we also worked on the drink water campaign during that time, so I was a part of that. But going back to my car having nails every 2 weeks, and I never put it together until recently. I was fighting against these very powerful corporations, PepsiCo, Coke, Frito-Lay. Even I did tobacco control work, so I was fighting against the big tobacco companies. And my husband, I think, had an intuitive instinct as the good husband that he is, the great husband that he is. I'm going to start meeting you at the city council meetings, Jackie, because something's not right. I don't like it. You're getting out of there till 10 p.m. You're driving from West LA. I was driving from Santa Monica. I was driving from Pasadena, Long Beach. And it just didn't make sense why I was getting all these flat tires. Well, come a big proposition that we worked on. I forget if it was 2012 or 2013. It was Prop 29. And this was a tobacco tax that we were trying to push in California, where each pack of cigarettes that was sold would increase by, I forget if it was a penny or 5 cents. It's been so many years. It's been over 15 years. I forget, but it was around that markup that we were calling every constituent you can think of in LA County. We were going to every city council member to just get the word out. We're doing this so that we can pass prevention policies so that kids under the age of 18 don't pick up the habit, because the kids that were picking up the habit for tobacco control were living in these areas that were also the kids that were drinking the soda 4 or 5 times a day, right? Goes hand in hand. And then came out of a council meeting and the whole side of my vehicle was just keyed. And I knew it. I said, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? My husband has to come and watch me, be my watchdog.
You needed a private eye.
Yeah, made sense. And I was just struggling really, because it was just me representing the American Heart in LA County, and it was my counterpart at American Cancer, my counterpart at American Leg. And by that time, diabetes was off the radar. We didn't have a counterpart from there, from them at that time. And I thought, what am I doing? How am I helping anybody? We weren't even passing these bills and policies that would just come within tens of thousands of votes to pass, because Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, tobacco, Coca-Cola were pumping millions into these billboards that everyone would see, like, oh, vote yes on Prop 29 instead of no, because it was like, no, vote no or vote yes or whatever. They were getting the opposite message. And so I realized quickly that the constituents of California and Los Angeles were so misinformed, and there was so much money being pumped into the dark side, that how could 3 people by themselves with limited resources for nonprofits go up against that? And it was so disheartening, Jackie. It was like, okay, so now what? What did I go to school for? I mean, Grandpa was like, El Jale, we got this. All like, how do we do this? How do we?
I mean, and it's like I mean, obviously there's some physical things happening, right?
Yes.
And
Which
then
we didn't really put together until after.
yeah, well, yeah, and then also
Yeah.
you getting ill
Yes.
as a result of all this,
Yes.
right?
Right. So I left American Heart, and it was a sad departure, because I gave a notice, and my boss was just like, no, you just can't go. But it was not a happy departure. Thank you, but no thank you was the conversation. And anyway, my dad became very ill a month after I gave my notice. But at this point, I was at home. And I was still wrapping up my degree for USC when that happened. And because I remember there was a time of internship, so it kind of all like melds together. But when I got very ill, I woke up one morning and it was just painful to have the blankets on my wrists, and I couldn't walk. And it was like I was walking like a little duck, and my husband says, what is happening? My dad had passed away 2 to 3 months before that, and it was devastating, to say the least. To lose a parent, it was melanoma, it was by the time I found out about him, I spent the last 2 weeks with him in the hospital bedside. And I remember when the oncologist came into the room, Jackie, to tell us, Mr. Sanchez, there's nothing we can do. And this is the first time I'm hearing it. Apparently Dad knew about it. Apparently Dad knew about it for 2 years. He just knew that if I knew about it, I would probably step back from my degree and from my work and from my internship at Heart Association. He didn't want that. So he was so smart.
Yeah.
Similar to my grandfather. So similar to his father-in-law. My dad was so smart. And so I turn around and the oncologist says, Mr. Sanchez, there's nothing we can do about it. My dad, you have this macho Mexican man, holding back his tears for dear life. And so after that, I think my body went into what my rheumatologist at the time said, autoimmune shock.
Yeah.
All the pain, everything with the Heart Association, everything with everything just, and I went into rheumatoid arthritis at the tender age of 26.
Wow.
A couple of months after Dad passed.
Yeah.
And I just thought, life is so unfair right now. I'm trying to do all this good work. I just got married. My husband has to emotionally support me, physically support me. His father-in-law just passed away. It was a dark time for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to be anyone but me, Jackie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody but me.
It's one of the biggest pains, and it's a very challenging position to be in because
Very.
your body gives you the signals that there's something wrong.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be a happy time, right? You're newlyweds. And I found the best rheumatologist in the Beverly Hills area. My husband said, well, if we're going to fight this, we're going to go to the best of the best.
Yeah.
So luckily, we had a PPO at the time, Blue Cross, and I found Dr. Parhami. I don't know if he's still alive. He was very old by the time he was treating me. And this is when I was 26. I'm 43 now. He says to me in the first appointment, you have full-blown rheumatoid arthritis. It is moderate to aggressive. And I started crying, and my husband's holding my hand, and I said, what does that mean? Because you're 20. I didn't know about that. I knew about end-stage renal disease and paraplegic and CVD and all this other stuff, diabetes, hypertension. So what does that mean? He says, well, what that means is that your body is attacking itself, and you have pain. And arthritis at the rheumatoid level is a disease that you can't see. So nobody knew what was wrong with me. Yeah. So everybody kept asking me, when are you going to have a baby? When are you going to have a baby? And it was so frustrating. And I was very stoic about the way I handled my disease the first couple of years. I was like, this isn't going to take me down. I'm Pedro Avila's granddaughter. I'm Mr. Sanchez's daughter. We went to march against all the bad stuff, right?
Right. It's almost like I went to march against apartheid and
apartheid and the rights of the farm workers and the right to be here in Los Angeles as an equal free citizen, right? Regardless of your skin color or your last name. And so I was very stoic about it and very aggressive with the treatment. So Dr. Parhami talked to my husband and he said, listen, easy peasy, movies, vacations, be happy, and let's try to get her over the grief of her father, because he thought that's what sort of catapulted me into this position that I was in. So we did methotrexate, we did Mobic, and methotrexate is a chemotherapy drug, right? So that was, I remember, 5 pills a week, and Mobic was daily as necessary. Then a couple years after, maybe 4 years after I was diagnosed, so I'm 28 at this point, and it's under control. It's under control, and maybe I'm 29, I forget, but it's under control. Let's say 5 years. He put me on Humira. It was very it's like a Nebril. It was the shot. And at that point in time, it was very new. Right. And there were only 10 years worth of studies. And Danny says, he looks at me and he says, whatever it takes to make you feel better, to be healthy. And so I was taking the Humira, and we know that I caught the H1N1 that year. That it was like a December.
Yeah, yeah,
And when I tell you the combination of being on a chemotherapy drug, which was the methotrexate, the
yeah.
Humira, which was the medication to target the arthritis and to stop the immune system from attacking itself, the combination of H1N1, nobody knew what was wrong with me. It
Yeah.
was almost like I had COVID in 2014, 13,
Mhm.
14, because it was December,
Yeah.
January. The doctors were like, what is, and I kept going back to the ER, going back to the ER. I can't breathe. I'm dying. It was like, they didn't know what was wrong with me. Well, what ended up being H1N1 went undiagnosed, misdiagnosed as whooping cough. And so I was put on one antibiotic after the other, after the other, after the other, simultaneously being on these other drugs for my rheumatoid arthritis treatment. And my immune system just went so much so that I was seeing double, that
Mm.
I was calling people because I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm so sorry about that thing I told you in third grade. One of those like,
Yeah.
let me
Wow.
call everybody I know because I'm gonna die
Right.
situation. Then I saw a really great acupuncturist in Temple City who told my husband, get her off all the antibiotics, get her off all the rheumatoid arthritis drug. Let's do it the natural way. As much as I love Dr. Parhami, this was beyond his scope at the time. And he said, get her on a green juice detox.
Mm.
So that's what we did. We eliminated gluten, we eliminated dairy, we eliminated red meat. I mean, anything that could, kale, we eliminated kale because I saw this really great doctor in Pasadena that was very expensive. And he ran a test and he said, you're allergic to kale. And that
Mm.
could be, at the time, I'm no longer allergic to kale, by the way, but I've ran tests since. But you're allergic to kale, you're allergic to cranberries, you just stay away from all of it. So, what was I eating? Chicken, rice, gluten-free oatmeal, lots of fruits and vegetables, and I was juicing at home.
Mhm.
And I really think that my body going on break from life, because I wasn't working anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
From red meat, from gluten, from everything that could be an allergen. Well, my symptoms were slowly like I felt good. I'm going to spin class. I'm doing swimming. I would take the arthritis class for the swimmers with old ladies. I loved it. It was my favorite class at the Rose Hills swimming pool because we were in Temple City at the time. So
Yeah.
Pasadena was down not the
Right.
Rose Hill, sorry, the Rose Bowl, the Rose Bowl.
Purple. Yeah.
I'm getting Whittier and Pasadena confused. And they would tell me, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I have RA, and they said it helps to swim." So there I was with my senior
Latinas.
gal pals, living my life with my senior friends. And I really think I'm an old person in a younger person's body my whole life.
Yeah.
But well, I got pregnant, and it was like, Dr. Barhami, I'm pregnant, but I'm on methotrexate.
Yeah.
Stop taking it. Act cool. I remember he said that, act cool. And he was a professor at USC too. So gosh, he was great. He's act cool, just be calm, keep doing the green juice. And I really think my body got, and I wasn't even trying for a baby. I think
Yeah.
we kept telling family, oh yeah, next year, because what was I gonna say? I'm in full blown arthritic mode.
Yeah.
I'm on 4 medications. My body hates itself.
Mhm.
Everybody would have said like, no, you're not. That can't be possible. Look at you. You're healthy. You look healthy because I
Right.
looked healthy, but in
Right.
the inside, it
Yeah.
was so painful, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
painful.
Oh, well, I mean, that receiving a diagnosis like that, going through it, and
Yes.
then all the complications associated with it, it's incredible that you're here, that
Yes.
you are, doing something completely different from what you started as public policy,
Exactly.
handling it on a macro level. Now you're in this space
Yeah.
that it's like, wow, like
Mhm.
completely. Green juice was kind of like
The
your
thing.
saving grace.
Yes. It saved me. And my pregnancy saved me, Jackie.
Mm,
Andrew saved me.
mm.
And Parhami would tell me 8 years before that, because I think I had the disease for about, because I was a newlywed. I wasn't even like 8 months, I don't know, a year married, I don't know. So he would tell me, I really think, Jackie, when you get pregnant, you're gonna be one of those miracle. It doesn't happen at all, but I know it. He would tell me, I feel it in my bones. He would tell me, and
Mm.
that special doctor I saw in Pasadena, also because he knew that I was working with an oh, and my chiropractor. So I was doing chiropractic care with Dr. Shum in Arcadia. And then I was seeing this special doctor that was holistic in Pasadena. And I was seeing Parhami at the same time because he still needed to run labs. And then I was seeing the acupuncturist in Temple City. And I think between those four doctors and removing all those foods and going on these beautiful green juice diets, I started driving all over LA County to find, oh, well, I wonder if this juice bar is good. Or I wonder if this smoothie place is good. Or I wonder if this acai bowl place is good. And it was almost like we visited maybe 50 to 100 juice bars in LA County, Orange County, San Diego in that year that I was on detox and that I was pregnant. Then fast forward to moving to Whittier. We bought a house a week before I was going to give birth. And so my son was born on July 4th, 2015. And the week before, we closed on escrow at a condo here in unincorporated Whittier. And we talked about this. I was still on the green juice and I was still in remission. But they thought, oh, she's in remission because she's breastfeeding, right?
Yeah.
So let's still not tread. Let's just tread lightly. Let's tread lightly. Let's not go back to cheese and I don't know, gluten and red meat. Let's just figure out where your body's at. So I was driving to Brea and Pasadena from Whittier because there weren't that many juice bars here. It was Jamba Juice, which, by the way, was my first job out of high school in South Pasadena, which is full circle again. And it was Herbie's, that family-owned juice shop. And then later on, that kind of withered away for some time. So I was frustrated. I think Andrew was 4 or 5 months old. It's raining, cats and dogs outside. I just came back from Pasadena to get like 3 days worth of green juice. And I come into the kitchen and my husband's on the computer and he's working away. He's a full-time loan officer at the time, real estate, all of that, because his family's in that business. And they've been so for many, many decades. And I say, how hard is it to get a green juice in Whittier?
Yeah. Yeah.
Postpartum, it's raining and I'm wet. My baby's, in the elemental weather with me outside. We're driving from Pasadena and sometimes from Brea and sometimes Fullerton. I said, how hard is it to get a green juice in Whittier? He turns around and he looks at me and he says, I don't know. Why don't you find out? And it was the most profound statement I think that has happened in the last 9 years of our life, because that was 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, right?
And that changed everything for you. Now
Well,
you
I will.
have. So then Nekter was born out of this, out
Yes.
of your
Frustration.
situation and your frustration, out of your frustration.
And the healing journey of it all,
Yeah. So now you have two Nekters,
too. Yes.
two, and working on another one.
We have one that's been stalled in the city of Downey because of just red tape with the city and that developer. And as life would have it, my husband and I have opened our juice bars and now our breakfast restaurant in brand new developments. Everything
Yeah.
what I mean by that is they give you a blank space and then you come in and you build your business. And so that's similar to what's happening in Downey. So we're on pause right now with that. But it's there, it's lingering in the background.
So Green Juices, amigas out there, she is the one of the franchisees of Nekter and Whittier. Where Whittier and where else?
So we have two in Whittier. We have one in Friendly Hills
Okay.
next to the Skechers and the Home Goods on Whittier Boulevard, 15307 Whittier Boulevard. And then we have the second Nekter at the Groves. At the Groves next to the new In-N-Out in Whittier. It's all the rage, that In-N-Out and the Raising Cane's, and across from the Rodeo 73.
Ah, yes. And then you also have what is it? EggBred?
EggBred. Yeah, we just opened a little less than a month ago. and it's going strong. Whittier really does come out to support, and I think we see so many familiar faces
Right.
because the our Nekter fan base, or our Nekter uh, customers
Right.
are very loyal to our product. Yeah,
Right. And then you also, during COVID, you guys kept it open.
we kept it open. We kept it
Yes.
open.
Yeah.
Kept it open. We copied Panera and we blocked it off with a 6 foot table. There were no masks at the time. And my husband said, as long as the Department of Public Health doesn't come and shut me down, I am here for the city of Whittier, and we will serve juice and smoothies and acai bowls. And that's what we did. We did
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we did that.
Amazing. I mean, this is an incredible, incredible journey that you've been on.
Thank you.
From
And I've been
health.
in remission for 10 plus years.
Bravo, bravo.
So
I love that,
thank God. Thank
especially that part.
Thank God.
Yes.
Thank my whole holistic team. It's almost unheard of. It's almost
Yes.
unheard of to remain in remission.
Yes.
And I'm really lucky. And there was a lot of prayers that were said and a lot of research that was done, but it's possible.
Yeah. Green juice, amigas.
Yeah.
Green juice has been a key, a pivotal thing for you.
For me.
And I know that it's gonna, I know the benefits of green juicing. Like
Yeah.
it really is incredible. Keeps you healthy. It has all the apples,
Yeah.
all the other, fruits and
Cucumber,
vegetables.
parsley, spinach. I mean, you name it. And the green apple is the one that's very diabetic friendly. So we do have a lot of customers that come in and will say, like, what do I get? And I said, get the toxin flush, ask for green apple, add some ginger in there for your gut, your anti-inflammatory situation. And that's another thing. My journeys includes a lot of prebiotics and probiotics now, because I realize that most disease starts in the gut.
Oh my gut.
In the gut.
Our
Yeah.
second brain
Our
is the gut.
brain is in the gut.
It's in the,
It's connected to our actual brain here on top. Yes, it's our
yeah.
second brain.
So what's next for you, Jackie?
That's a good question. We're actually on our way to Vegas this weekend that's coming up to look at some spots for EggBred. So looks like we might be going into the Nevada market. I have a couple of children's books that I've discussed with you offline that I've written that I probably would most definitely like to get back to submitting to agents, and see if I can be published as a children's book author. And one of them involves how to build a smoothie and how to build a. So mine are very food centric.
Yes.
And they involve my children, Andrew and Adam, Andrew's going to be 10 on 4th of July. Adam just turned 5 in March. Characters are friends from school, his really good friend, neighbor, Ellie, next door, my nephews, Cruzy and Leo. Yeah,
Oh,
so
sweet. Well, we're definitely going to bring you back to
yeah,
talk about these books because I
for
know
sure.
super important. And I love to highlight Latinas who have books. So
Thank
this would be a
you.
beautiful thing. So, Amiga, before I let you go, I'd love to hear if you have one or two tips on how an Amiga can handle her shit because you've been doing it.
I've been handling it. I've been handling it.
Yeah.
I want to say that the best piece of advice that I can give an amiga to handle her shit is surround yourself with people that are handling their shit. And I mean that even with family, with friends, with your partner, your spouse, your significant other. Take away those key characteristics from people in your circle where they're doing better than you perceive yourself to be doing. They're thinking better. They're living better. They're healthier by the choices they make with their food. They're active several times a week. They drink their water. What do they do to drink their water? They finished that degree program at age 50. Well, how did they go back for a third degree in their 40s? Shout out to cousin-in-law Joanna, who is back at USC getting a doctoral degree, And I told her last year, and I was so honored because she shared this news with me after her husband, before she told her family. And she was like, the one that's going to understand is you, Jackie. And I said, I'm right behind you. I don't know how many years it's going to take me, but once my kids are a little older, it's all about timing. And so I take people like Joanna, I take people like my husband, I take people like you, Jackie, I take people like my brother-in-law, Jason. Um, who can I learn from?
Yeah.
Who is doing it better than I am? And not to say that I'm going to do it like them, but what element of their life can I incorporate into my life so that I can handle my shit too?
Yeah.
Right? And procrastination, I've learned, is the enemy to
Mhm.
anything in your life. So the moment I think about it, I, I, I used to see a therapist who has since passed away. She passed away during COVID in 22, but I saw her for 5 years because I got postpartum anxiety, which was like I couldn't shut my brain off to relax. So that turned into a beautiful 5 year relationship, friendship with her. And she would tell me, it's called the 5 second rule.
Yeah.
And I think she read it in a book, which I have yet
Yeah.
to read.
Yeah. 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 It's by Mel Robbins.
Yes, okay. And I love my dear friend Mel Robbins. I hope to one day meet her or go to her
Hmm.
seminar, the Let Them theory. Let
Yeah.
them, right?
Mhm.
Let them. But
But
for that,
before let them was the 5 second rule.
yes. And she didn't even know who the author was at that time. And I never even bothered to ask. She just told me, listen, the 5 second rule is if you think about it within those 5 seconds, you need to do it. Act. Get out of the bed within those 5 seconds. Go pour yourself that extra glass of water. Order that green juice on your app, because if you don't do it within those 5 seconds, the likelihood of you procrastinate increases by I don't know how much,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's another strong piece of advice I would give Latinas, women in general, people that want to handle their shit is the moment you think about it, okay, let's do it. And if you didn't, for whatever reason, have the time because you're driving the kids to school or because you're on your way to work or you're dropping the dry cleaning off, because we have life, we have obligations, we have things that are not fun. She would say they're not sexy, right? We have items on the agenda that are not sexy. And what I mean by that is that they're not on our list of priorities, but we have to
Mhm.
get them done anyway, right?
Right.
So it's write it down.
Write it
Write
down.
it down. Whether it's on your notes in your iPhone or your Droid, your Android, or if it's an old school planner like I have, write down what you want to get accomplished.
Yeah.
And that can be as simple as eating broccoli 3 times this week. Okay. Or drinking 8 glasses of water Monday through Friday. Let's
Yeah.
just,
Right.
or walking today on the treadmill for 30 minutes. And when I started writing everything down, it psychologically prompts you to say, I got to check it off because
Yeah.
I'm a girl that checks it off. Done,
Yeah.
done, check,
Yeah.
check,
Girl,
check.
you're like me. I'm a checker.
Checker, highlighter, planner,
Yes. I'm like
calendar, old
putting it
school.
in the typewrite. Like, no,
And
no,
so
we got.
I always tell people, text me what you want me to remember because I'm gonna write it down after the fact. Because if you, I'm very visual. I'm a
Yeah.
photographic, and my older son is a photographic learner. I will photographically memorize something by looking at it, reading it once or twice. But if you tell me 100 times, Jackie, I might be like, wait, what was that
Like,
she said?
what did you say?
And really, I come off so spazzy when I'm like, what did you say? But I have to write it down. I
Yeah.
have to write it
Yeah.
down. So, whatever methodology you need to use, amiga, to handle your business, write it down. Write it down, whether it's bedside, whether it's a planner, whether it's a voice memo. We all have tools within our reach to be able to not procrastinate anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Yes. I'm
Very
so
amen.
so grateful for this conversation, and I know that we're going to do this again.
Yes, I think we
Um,
are.
after you publish your books, we definitely come back and talk
Yes,
about children's stories
yes.
and all things health.
All
More
things
green
health.
juice, more franchises,
More
more.
movement, more exercise, more meditation,
More
more
meditation.
time in quiet.
Yes.
That helps so much. And it could be something as simple as listening to a YouTube peaceful 20 minutes before bed, lights off, because we're so addicted, including myself, to technology.
Oh,
The Pinterest of it all, the Instagram story that I need to post.
I know.
And I get it. We live in 2025, but there should be a balance also of quiet stillness.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Jackie, for
you.
being here on Amiga Handle Your
I'm
Shit.
so grateful to you and so grateful to the Tapia family and to Jessica because
Oh,
I feel like this brought us full circle and
yes,
I'm very,
absolutely.
very grateful. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
And then also kisses to the cousins, Erica
Yes,
and Anna.
yes, to the family over here, the Hernandez Vega family.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, my friend.
thank you, amiga.
And I believe my he'll finish this off. Anyhow.
Awesome.